Thank you, residents, for starting us off as always with meditation. I'm very happy to introduce Joan Logghe for our poetry series, a series of Dharma talks by poets, including poet laureates of Santa Fe, of which Joan is one. Joan works at Poetry and Community in La Puebla, New Mexico. She and Michael built their solar house, raised 3 children, and have 4 grandchildren. Awards for her work include a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, Witter Binner Foundation for Poetry Grants, a Mabel Dodge Lujan internship, and a Barbara Deming Money for Women grant. She taught poetry in Bratislava, Vienna, and Zagreb, Croatia in 2004. Joan was Santa Fe's Poet Laureate from 2010 to 2012, and she has authored or edited a dozen books, including The Singing Bowl from UNM Press and Love and Death, Trey Chica's books with Miriam Sagan and Renee Gregorio, a New Mexico Book Award winner. Also, Unpunctuated Awe, Santa Fe Poems, grew out of her Poet Laureate stint. You can purchase books directly from Joan by contacting her at joanlogghe, Logghe, @gmail.com, or you can find them online. So we're going to start with the verse before the Dharma talk, and then very happy to have Joan share some of her poetry with us.
To hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning.
Am I ready? I think I'm ready to speak to you all. I knew this would be different, but I'm feeling you. I just want you to know I'm sitting in La Puebla, New Mexico, about 30, 40 minutes north of you, in a red sofa where I read stories when my grandchildren are able to be here with me. And you're in my home, and I hope we're in each other's hearts. It's just beautiful to see you out there. So I want to thank Upaya for their poetry series. I also would like to dedicate my efforts this evening to my dear friend Jitsudo Ancheta, who passed on May 9th. And I'll talk a little about him as I go through the poetry. I want to start with a dedication that's a Celtic prayer of approach, and I love it. I hope I can remember it all. I got it on a brochure and I thought it was so beautiful. I honor your gods. I drink from your well. I bring an undefended heart to our meeting place. I will not negotiate by withholding. I have no cherished outcome. I am not subject to disappointment. I have to admit that I don't practice Zen. But I also have to admit that when I look through my poems are so full of Zen references that I'm in love with you all the time. I'm just kind of a faithless lover. But I'm gonna read you some things and see how you see what you think. The breath that I return to over and over again is marriage, family, this land in La Puebla, and poetry. So I have a lot of things where I lose my way and I keep returning to them. So Michael is my sidekick. He's over there just in case, just to be supportive. He's here. We've been together, someone asked me today, we've been together 50 years. We've been married almost 49 years. And this is a poem that comes out of our marriage. Mixed marriage. My husband with no band, with a barbed wire voice and a closet full of verbs. My husband of lapis lazuli. I gave my husband a power mower for a wedding, wed him under a hoopah of evangelical hammers. I married him, a geisha, to a wok, to a blue martin, to a box of cornflakes. I went to the church on a streetcar filled with carnations. We ate carnations in public, man and wildfire, husband and furnace. We tried to say I do, but said I dare. The minister was hanging a Japanese scroll in 15th century rivers. He said, do you take the worst and make soup? Do you take the best and escalate? We said, I sweat. Said, nobody mentioned death. My husband, with his farmer's almanac heart and the will of 100 horsepower lunar calendar. When we travel, life is reduced to nouns: key, clock, money, roadmap, shower. When we marry, we take the verb: cohabit, fight, apologize, procreate, launder, out of the cast iron nuptials into the consummate fire. So this book is called 20 Years in Bed with the Same Man. People love the title. They always come up to me and said how many years they've been in bed with the same person. I have another poem in this book that I want to read you, and this has a Jitsudo story attached to it. And I hope nobody takes offense. I've been wrestling with this all day, whether to tell this story. I don't know if any of you know Jitsudo Anchetta, but he came here from LA and he was working with the AIDS community as I was. And I met him, he was teaching, and I met him, but I have to tell you what happened before I met him. I was up at Hollyhock, my dear friend, all of our dear friend, Natalie Goldberg sent me up there. And I had one of those experiences of one. I had a oneness experience. Me, Joan Logghe from Pittsburgh. And it had to do, I don't know if you can see this, these eyes. I don't know if you can see it, this set of eyes. I don't know if you can. And it sent me into the one. It was a coincidence that happened. And I'm going to read you the poem and then I'll tell you about meeting Jitsudo. Eve Marie's Eyes. So it was written at Hollyhock in Canada. I found her in Eden holding an armful of towels. In my hand, I held a silver heart and a fish, talked about the eyes that dare to look, brown on brown or hazel on blue. In her gaze, I meet my absolute. Told how where I live, I avert my eyes. Handsome Spanish man or the native child, it's cultural, I explain. Lost in the window, that card from my childhood deck. On its other side, I find her very eyes carved on an ancient mask so I won't forget. Eye on eye, we meet in a holy land without shame or consequence to remember why we came. Saying goodbye and thanking all the time. Thank bed, thank sandalwood soap, and thanking rain. I told him yesterday that for 5 years, I've been learning to give thanks to a compliment. Now, you're welcome is my next frame. So today, facing 2 deer in my long way home, I heard the world say, you're welcome, as I thanked, and I recognized why I came. And I said, I can't bear it at the ferry gate. I can't bear it has been my refrain. From now I change my song to sound the depth. I can bear it and I bore it off to my home, a traveler blessed. My dark eyes allow the world and begin to contain. The eyes of the animals lead me back into yours. Man or woman, I am each moment's wife. The bear looking into my eyes from a photograph has given me nerve to carve my name in you. You will never forget me, nor will I lose you. My heart is God's eye and recollects why I came. I bear the world home to our loving, matchmaking you with my eyes. I want to gaze you back to Eden as I have been Edenized. So I really thought I was enlightened. I told my therapist that I thought I was a holy woman. I thought I came back enlightened. And I met Jitsudo for the first time. He was teaching Qigong. And I went up to him with all my courage and I told him that I thought I was enlightened. And he looked at me with such kindness and sweetness and he said, "You passed close by." Of course, at that moment, I thought he probably didn't really know what I had really had a little moment there. But he and I became friends. He met Diana Stetson, who's a wonderful, I know she's listening to us, she's with us, a wonderful artist that I knew through my Ghost Ranch connections. And they got married. And so I had these two people that I really cared about married and taught quite a few times down at Hidden Mountain Zendo with Jitsudo. So that's the story of me not being enlightened and making a friend anyhow. I told the story. I wasn't sure about that. Another thing that happened when I was in Hollyhock and that led into that experience was I thought of the line from Linda Gregg, "I am filled with all things seen for the last time." I'm filled with all things seen for the last time. And I went through the week of teaching up there with that sense of this is the last time I will see these things. And yeah, so I'm going to read you a few more poems. Thank you, Jitsudo, for being my friend all these years. I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see this again. I don't think you can see it, but maybe you can. Can you nod your head if you can see it? Yay, there's people out there. Yeah, so this is, it's called the Begging Bowl, and it's a lino cut that Jitsudo did, and he let me use it as the cover of my book. So this is a book called The Singing Bowl. It's the Begging Bowl is filled with flowers, in case you can't see the close-up of it. I'm going to read you just a few without a lot of talk. This is a form called the Villanelle. A lot of these poems that I picked for tonight are about death, but I know that I'm in company that can handle it. This is a Villanelle, a French form, and it's called On My 60th. Sunday after the all-night drive, hailstorms and we're packing for a trip. Everyone you love will surely die. I'm turning 60, melons on the vine. I navigate my life, a stunning blip. Monday morning before the all-day drive. You say I'm morbid. Where's the blooming lie? Shall I let my oldest secret slip? Everyone I love will someday die. Before our excursion to the skies, nobody's about to give me lip. Tuesday morning, we're all packed to fly. Feisty conclusion, no more I. Heaven and hell are joined at the hip. Everyone we hold will let go, die. Please be here, my darling, my blue eye. You and I once separate, old and hip. Wednesday morning, counting, days go by. Everyone you love will, gently or raging, die. You'll see what I mean about all the references to Zen. I mean, I only picked about half of the ones. Ghazal, the ghazal is a form from the Middle East. And I know Elizabeth Jacobson, when she read a few weeks or months back, she'd read a ghazal. You'll hear some repetition, and you'll hear that the two-line stanzas don't necessarily connect logically. So this is ghazal for a young married Zen student. You are not living in ancient times. You are not living in modern times, only in time. This is an arranged marriage. Remember, emptiness gave you each other for a time. Years, you might be civil, polite, and kind, and then you need the feral darkness of crazy time. Nothing is personal. Love is blind. Death is sure. Do you wish you could be courteous all the time? You should get divorced immediately, right now. Get married a little later, tonight, next week. You'll know the time. The number of sentient marriages is endless. I vow to save them all, but can't all the time. Do you know that old country song or affluent anthem? If you've got the money, honey, I've got the time. Reduced to silence in the arms of the mystery. Where is my wise woman when I need her this time? Take weeks apart, walk in opposite directions, then run, arms open, shouting in the park. It was you all the time. How can I offer advice when I've bumbled and flailed? I dwell in holy confusion for the sake of deep time. Radiant daughter of form and formlessness, Joan Logghe says, take your time. Oh, let me see if I want to read that now or later. See this one. I think I'll read this one and then go back. This is the quietest audience I've ever read to in my entire life, except when I read to myself. You guys are quiet. I heard a sound of life from you. They're laughing. I'm going to read you one or two parts of this poem for a little boy that came through visiting next door, and his name was Mundo, as in world. He was Dutch, and everyone on the street fell in love with Mundo. So I have 3 poems for Mundo. His father said this. He was 2 or 3, and it's his first love poem. Probably 20 by now. 3 poems for Mundo. I think I'll read one and see how I do with time. I want to say the word Mundo, as this week I met baby Mundo, a Dutch kid barely toddling, saying the baby words for cat and fish, a serious baby, saying, Buddha, Buddha. My own grandchild smiles all the time with her 2 cut teeth and her flock of hairs. Almost too happy, I hug her to get the happy to rub off. She infects me with joyful, futuristic music. She piles my regrets with blocks and knocks them down. All week under the snow, I was alive. The elder staving off death, 7 phone calls, a roll of tape, postage. The eye of the needle I pass through is never roomy enough. No company here, and yet I am a sociable person. When I am not busy perfecting my pessimism, I broke a mirror. I accepted a red gift. I made a baby named Mundo a love song on a blackboard. I turned him into the love of my life this week. Mundo, Mundo, can your hip Dutch parents coax a better world for your footsteps? I lived some other way this week, became hopey, more survival, more prayerful. I miss God, and yesterday in the wingspan of the raven, I felt a little sacred breath in the rescued bobcat with my name, in the book on the shelf that held you, in Spiritus Sanctus of imagined cathedrals, in the cave of the owl, in the snow, in the snow, in the snow. I met a child called Mundo. My own daughter named Hope is on the phone. The burning world keeps me warm in the snow. I love this chilling sequined world. I love this chilling sequined world, Mundo. That was interesting. My attention got off the poem for a second, and I messed up the word because I thought about something else right in there. I think I'll read you the second The second mundo, but not the third. Let me have some water. Take care of yourself. Says the grandmother, says the elder. Okay, so this is the second mundo poem. I'd love to see that person again. 2. Mundo, dear baby, dear reader who can't even read. Things are getting pretty dicey, so it's good that you have a Buddha in your house to tell you, mellow out when the going gets rough. You are the Uber toddler. You are the child St. Nicholas had in mind when he invented gifts. I didn't tell you, my youngest has fallen in love. I know my youngest is watching. Hi, Hope. My youngest has fallen in love. It only just happened. I wish you could see them. They give off a glow like your pure light. They are toddling their new love through town where people feel blessed by them. Angels come to mind, and also all the old love stories. Sometimes love turns out. You are an example. Love comes with a big warning sign. Twice marriage had global warming like a curse. Love lasted, will last, is always born and hovering. I named my youngest Hope, and she walks through the world giving off sparks like you. Baby Mundo, giving me faith in the year that could be rough. I don't know. I sense chaos around every corner. It could be me when I get too happy. The evil eye, my old Jews would say, Mundo, we can't even praise a baby. My ancestors would spit to ward off bad tidings. Good tidings to you and all your Dutch kin. I met a child named Mundo, and I wish Hope could meet you. But you are gracing the Netherlands, a low-lying place. You will always have a place in my heart. I send you oceans of love, little Mundo. This year or the next, I will see you grown. Until then, diminutive visionary, I send you peace. Thank you, Mundo, for being so inspiring. How's everybody doing? You're there. Yay, you're there. You're there. You're there. You're beautiful in there. Okay, let's see. I really worked hard on this. I want to get a college degree. But I have just a bachelor's degree. Let's see. I know you all know haiku. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. I know you all know haiku. I wanted to just talk a minute about another path in my life. For 40 years, I've worked in schools. That's been my main thing. I've taught adults too, but for 40 years, since I was 30 something till now I'm 72, I've worked with children. And I think that child's mind, I'm not going to say beginner's mind, I'm going to say child's mind or original mind, has been fresh over all the years. Every kid practically can succeed and has a little poem in it inside of him. And I was going to talk for a second. Let's see where oh, here it is. I was going to talk for a second about, I'd mentioned my daughter Hope, and she has a child called Kalea, who is 7. She has a child called Luca, who is 2 and loves backhoes. She has a child called Jade Bird, who died at 4 days old. And that was 4 years ago. And our family went through grief and mourning ritual. The kids had been studying with Martine Prechtel, the teacher. And we went through grief in a way that was so profound that just even talking about it, I still feel it in my arms and legs. So the baby named Jade Bird passed on. I'm going to talk a second about Isa, and then I'm going to read you the poems that my granddaughter kind of composed, one verbally and a couple in the air and a couple on paper. Here's the thing about Isa. I'm sure most of you know about Isa, but I have people who are tuning in who aren't living in a Zen center right now. Isa is so beautiful. He had so much loss in his life. His mother died when he was 2. He was a Japanese haiku poet. His mother died when he was 2. He had 4 sons and a daughter, all who died before they were 1 year old or around 1 year old. And I somewhere, let's see, wait a second. I have page 57 in the Singing Bowl. I have a poem to Isa that I'm thinking I should have at my fingertips. Do you see, Michael? Oh, I see it. I see it. It's on the floor. His first poem, when he was 6 years old, and of course we're getting it in translation from the Japanese. He was 6 years old and he lost his mother when he was 2. So his first poem was "Come, motherless sparrow, come, motherless sparrow, and play with me." So in this book, I wrote a poem in the voice of Isa's child called Sato, who lived 1818 to 1819. And the poem that Isa wrote was, "The world of dew is the world of dew, and yet, and yet. The world of dew is the world of dew, and yet, and yet." And my poem, in the voice of Isa's child, says, "My father loves small things, the bird, the cricket in the corner, the moth wing. So I must leave him while I am small. My name means wisdom, and I know it is my unfortunate job to breeze in on my mother's fierce love, to breathe a while and go. I gave 1 year to life. His own mother left when he was 2, and my 3 brothers are all fated to lives of dragonfly's length. That way, my father, keeper of the small, the insignificant, the low, the toad, the fly, the swallow, the mosquito, will be so moved all his days that fire for his work will feed on this sad fuel and outlast any one body, one jot of a life." Here's the thing about him. He had all this grief and he didn't complain like I do. He wrote let me just tell you, this just blows my mind. This is an old book, translations by Blythe. He didn't complain. He wrote 54 haiku on the snail, 15 on the toad, 200 on frogs, about 230 on the firefly, more than 150 on flies, over 100 on fleas, 90 on the cicada, and about 70 on other insects, a total of about 1,000 verses on such creatures. You got to respect that. So he looked to the world of beauty and insignificance, and he wrote this light. So I just wanted to introduce that. And then I want to read you my granddaughter's poems. So I told you I've been teaching for 40 years. So my granddaughter started speaking beautiful words, and I grab a paper and I can write really fast, and then I have to type it up fast because it's illegible. She was 3 years old. It was, I think, 3 weeks after she was back here from Pittsburgh, where they live, where we buried the ashes of Jade Bird ceremonially. She was around death. She saw death. She saw her baby on life support. And this is what she said. "When I am 6 or 7, I'm going to go to grad school and teach ants and trees when they die, and computers when they die. And when I was 7 or 8 or 5, when I was 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, I must go to preschool. I just teach some grad school, get a checkup from the doctor and see my mom and dad and big brother and big sister. And then when I was 8 or 9 or 7 or 3 or 5, go to teach spiders and ants and belly dancers. I know belly dancers and must and mustard. And when I was 6 or 7 or 5 or 8, I went on horses and rided chickens. Me and my friend Easy. She rides chickens with me. Easy rides chickens with a saddle on my back and a lawnmower on my front. computers on my arms and legs. By Kalea Amaya Guthrie, age 3 years and 12 days, 20 days into Jade Bird's passing. I, by the way, got her permission. I would not read these to you without her permission. I'm going to read you 2 more little poems because I like them better. Well, maybe, yeah, I'll read you 2 more. I wonder what the sun tastes like. I also wonder if it tastes like lemon ice cream. Does it? Does it ever have anything to do with lemon ice cream or anything to think about lemon ice cream? I always wanted to taste clouds. What do they taste like? They probably taste like rain, or they probably taste like water, rain or water, I don't know, have to find out. Then I do a mystery tomorrow. If you can't do anything minutes, no minutes are gonna surprise. If you ever taste the sun, if you ever taste the clouds, remember to tell me and give me a little piece if you have left over. Amen. I mean, no, amen is not a good thing. Thank you for your I'm glad I chose that. I love to illustrate things, so I illustrated that one. This is the last one of Kalea's that I'm going to read you. And this one was written by hand now that she's a big girl. She's being homeschooled in Pittsburgh now, of course. And she turned 7, but this was written when she was 6 in July. The spelling's interesting. The word over is spelled like the French word O-E-U-V-R-E, like work. And the word mountains has a T at the end. That's all. This is written by hand by Kalea Guthrie. Sunset over the mountains, flowers growing on the mountains, mountains growing on the ground. Sunsets over the mountains, flowers growing on the mountains, mountains growing on the ground. I don't know. I am her grandmother, but it's pretty good. You think it's pretty good? Let's see what we're going to do now. One thing I did that was really meaningful and important was I started keeping sonnet length poems. Here, I'm going to show you. This is a book called Rice. Let's see. I don't know if you can see this. You see it? Yeah. So that's my artwork on the cover, my attempts. So every poem in the book is the length of a sonnet, but other than that, they don't rhyme and they're not like Shakespearean or anything like that. It's called Rice because I started writing them on rice paper with a typewriter, and I just kept doing it for about 2 years. I wrote 100 and about, I don't know, 80 are published in this book called Rice. On the back it says, inside 1 grain of rice, 1,000 gods, which is an anonymous Buddhist saying. Inside 1 grain of rice, 1,000 gods. And then there's another one that's a Zen maxim. When you boil rice, know that the water is your own life. With all this Zen in my work, I feel like I need to like pack up, move to Santa Fe and come hang out with you all. But I've lived on this land for 40 some years, so probably won't. Okay, so I'm going to read you 2 of these 14-line poems. I like short poems, you know. That's a boring. She came back from Nepal with a pierced nose and a certain heart. Last night I dreamed her feet were painted henna and black as if for marriage, her head shaved as if for ordination. She and her sister ate rice, had one body spanning years. I live on edge. The henna cost dearly, or so I dreamed, and would be danced off in days. I saw her alive and fine, felt ancient weariness, her zest and my fear, her face and my fate, moved not to tears, but to the fire where I sat by her and sat, drank ginseng tea for strength, and filled the night with thanks. Prayer leaked into the night from my amateur heart. I really like that last line. Prayer leaked into the night from my amateur heart. I love the word amateur there. It had a different word, but amateur has love in it. Amava Mas Mat. Here's the second poem. Is the world new? 1,000 starlings found my feeder. My youngest has the flu. My husband crashed on the couch. We missed the bonfire, the party, didn't even kiss. My son and I discussed militias, overpopulation, and starvation. Our terrible American refrigerator is full. Everything from lox to fried rice, leftover Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese, I don't know. In childhood, the world was new, though the sky stank with industry. It's clean here. Radiation doesn't show. No idea what we inherit. Read and watch the tube. Walk and sleep too much. Like a bear, we have caves. Like a sadhu. I have to make some editorial choices so that we end right. I like to end on time. Let's see. Well, we'll do this one and then we'll see how it works out. I'm going to hold you another picture. You can tell I taught kindergarten at one point. Up, more. That's a Jizo. Can you see Jizo? I'm going to read you a poem in this book, but I'm going to show you what I've been doing. You know how people sometimes paint on rocks? I always thought it was like the worst thing you could ever get yourself involved with was painting on rocks, but it's exactly what I've been doing. I've done about 30 or 40 Jizos. This one actually turned out. Okay, so this one turned out. So I've done about 30 or 40. I did about 7 today. I'll show you another. This one looks just like Jitsudo. And I know he loved, can you see that fellow? That face, the expression on the face looks to me, Diana, excuse me for saying, but it looks like Jitsudo to me. So before I knew he had passed, I just started doing this, painting them on rocks. Yeah, so I'm going to read you. I'm not going to go into long detail. This is a handmade book that I did that's called 27 Sorrows. And I have to thank, and it has a lot of Jiso pictures. It has a lot of Jiso pictures in it that I did. And it's a one-of-a-kind book that I made and sent to my daughter and son-in-law the year they lost their baby. And I want to thank Miriam Sagan for this because it's made out of similes, and she wrote a poem like that. And it's called 27 Sorrows. Like a Tuvan throat singer, like licorice that turns your mouth black, like a popsicle of dirt, like a love song written by a vulture, like a child articulating a soliloquy, like tremendous relief before the applause, like the word devastated spoken in German, like a storm cloud singing opera, like a terrible 2, an awful 9, like the 7s in multiplication, like a sponge wrung out by a therapist, like an irritation that doesn't produce a pearl, like your father swallowing his last oyster, like the word oi, a Yiddish punishment in vowels, like a shattered cell phone, like knees everywhere from too much prayer or gardening, like the impresario producing the funeral that will sell out, like enough is enough, like just try and get over it already, will you? Like dynamiting the storyline, like 10,000 worries weren't enough, like rattling our human cages, like God heard me say we had been blessed no matter what. Like the evil eye wasn't a made up thing, like the meaning fell out of the story, like buying a meter that measures darkness. It starts with Jizo and it ends up with corn maidens. How does it show? Maybe just one at a time. Up.
To your left. Oh, other left.
The other left?
The other left.
That's great.
Up.
Well, at least we had a little bit of that moment. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. Let me just look at my college degree here and see which I'll read you just a couple of really brief, short ones to go out on. And again, I'm so artsy craftsy that I sew the poems are sewed onto black paper. I think I'm going to find one more. Okay. I'm going to read you some short poems and we're going to finish like on the absolute moment that we're supposed to finish. But I'm going to have some water first to take care of myself. Okay. So these are some short poems I wrote when I was doing Poet Laureate. To tell you the truth, I actually sewed them into pot holders and they were called poem holders. But I've stopped doing that because it was very labor intensive and I wasn't writing anymore. Okay. How can I take back all the moments I forgot to thank my food? You can't, the chickens say. No way, the fish swim off. Me too, the cows moo. Only the grass laughs, but grass passes through 4 stomachs on its way to milk. Water winks, and water is shared by the trout. You cannot take back your lack of gratitude, but praising may begin. Poem written on a retablo. Eye of the heart, you see sound. You see fretting hearts, you see mergers. You lift spirits out of the mounds your ancestors left. You see Jenny selling beans at the store. You see Sophie sitting down with a dozen guests. You gave me invisible qualities. You gave me my shadow. From behind closed doors, my eyes turn vision inwards, turn smells into souvenirs. Eye of the heart, you soak me in light. You feed imagery into my muscles. You run rampant. If only we could give up industry and see as you do. The next one is not seasonal. It's a poem for Deep Snow, but I want to read it anyhow because I like the ending. It's good to like your work, you know? People like your work. Yesterday, I was pleased with sunlight on trees after snow, filled my heart and no leaves left except the dozen red-winged blackbirds who sat there, pleased to be birds filling in for leaves in the last honey sun of Saturday after it was all foggy white. And I knew I could never be able to catch them in a net of words. So I drank cool water after a hot bath and became unburdened. Did you get that joke at the end? I became unburdened. Laughter from the Zendo. I think Laughter from the Zendo should be my next book. Here's my last poem. You missed some long, depressing ones. You can be grateful for that. Keep a glass of water near your bed. Who taught me that? To draw the anger out, then spill the water into the earth. Put tobacco on the earth after you smoke, he told you, and throw the filter away. I saw the women of Tasuki Pueblo sprinkle cornmeal at the corner of the plaza before the dance and after the dance. I saw the drummers at Taos powwow touch their hands to their throat before drumming. I saw the members of my temple touch the Torah with their prayer shawls and kiss the shawl. I saw my mother kiss my children. I saw these things, and now I get to live and act in all these ways as if one way, another bright and glistening day. Thank you for being there. Thank you for feeling me, because I feel you. And this wasn't as scary and weird and liquid as I thought it would be. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joan. That was such a lovely talk. I loved being in your living room with you on your red couch, like your grandchildren, listening to your stories and poems.
Thank you for helping me with the technology.
Oh, it was great. We had 70 people and still do have 70 people watching on YouTube. And so for everyone out there, you can get Joan's work by contacting her directly at joanlogghe@gmail.com. And I'll put this in the chat box. If you'd like to make a donation for Joan, please go to upi.org/giving. And wherever you give, you can put in the comments section Joan Logghe, and we'll make sure a donation makes it to her. Also, we've got a lot of online stuff coming up for everyone watching. Zazenkai on Saturday. We'll do a full day of Zen, and then the Varela Symposium coming up after that. And so we'll end tonight with the verse with the Four Vows, and by special request from Joan, the Evening Gata.
Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly and opportunity is lost. Let us awaken, awaken, take heed. Do not squander your life.